And now, our first speaker today to speak about the CAP Fit for 2030 is the European Commissioner for Agriculture, Janice Wojciechowski, and it's our pleasure to welcome him to the stage today. Commissioner.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm warmly welcome you to this year's Outlook Conference. The timing of the Outlook Conference could not have been better because 3 days ago, the official journal of the European Union published 3 regulations, basic regulations for the Common Agricultural Policy reform. This, fortunately for me, it was published in my birthday, but I'm happy that we achieved the political compromise in June and we have the complete legislative package for the Common Agricultural Policy reform. This reform has very strong political mandate because European Parliament adopted reform with 2/3 majority of votes in favor. Also, European Council supported the reform, adopted reform almost unanimously because only 1 member state was abstention. Nobody was against of this reform. This is very strong political mandate. A new common agricultural policy that will set new standards for the environment, that will make agriculture more sustainable and that will help our farmers to master the challenges ahead. Commission is satisfied with the political compromise reached, and I'd like to once again to thank for the European Parliament and for the Council for very constructive negotiations and for achieving this compromise, which is the success of the European Union. Throughout the COVID pandemic, which is not over yet, our European Union agri-food system has been working and demonstrated its functioning as a crisis response. I wish to thank again all players along the food chain for their efforts in these difficult times, for the farmers, but also for the food processors, food distributors, for all working in this system. Without them, it would have not been possible. To make agriculture fit for 2030, the new common agricultural policy must be fairer, greener, and more effective. As a former judge, I have some reservation about how we define and measures fairness. In principle, fairness cannot be calibrated according to a scale. To put it simply, either something is fair or is not. To put it bluntly, an agricultural policy must be fair. In this context, 3 elements are of key importance. First, a fair agricultural policy is an equal opportunity policy. Nobody should be left behind. It should be in particular fair to small and medium-sized family farms. We have lost so many of these farms in recent years, as they were unable to compete and on an increasingly uneven playing field with ever more intensive agriculture. In certain sectors, livestock in particular, small and medium-sized farms have been almost completely squeezed out of the competition. A fair agricultural policy is about reversing the decline of small and medium-sized family farms and allowing them to restart production and re-enter the market. This can be achieved with tools in the new CAP, such as redistributive payments and eco-schemes. It can be also achieved with CAP support for animal welfare actions and organic farming, which offer wide-ranging opportunities for viable programs and could be easily implemented in small and medium-sized farms. Caring for small and medium-sized farms does not mean neglecting large ones. Far from it. We need farms of different types. Since agricultural conditions and structure differ from country to country, our approach needs to be flexible. The new CAP is attractive to large farms too, in particular with regard to eco-schemes such as precision farming and carbon farming. A fair agriculture policy must ensure equal and universal access to EU funding for all types of farms. This is something that I will focus on when assessing the strategic plans. The access criteria must not discriminate against anybody. Second, a fair agriculture policy must be a transparent policy. When assessing and implementing the strategic plans, we will pay special attention to the transparency of the criteria for distributing funds. The Commission will ensure that access to agriculture funds is not limited to a small group of beneficiaries, and that every farmer, if they wish to do so, may find out about programs in a timely manner in order to apply. Similarly, care will be taken to avoid any conflict of interest in the distribution of EU funds. Third, a fair CAP means fair requirements for member states. While we have common European Union CAP objectives, the respective starting points of the member states differ, particularly concerning environmental and climate objectives. There are very substantial differences with regard to level of greenhouse gas emissions, to use of pesticides, chemical fertilizers and antibiotics, as well as the development of organic farming. The Commission will take those differences into account in a fair way when assessing their strategic plans from the member states. The Commission will also ensure a transparent assessment of the strategic plans, notably through the publication of watch lists following the preliminary assessment. Everyone will be able to view the Commission comments on the respective plans and compare the requirements applicable to the different member states. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that according to the three elements I have outlined, equal opportunities for the farmers, full transparency for the citizens, and balanced requirements for member states, all of the conditions for a fair CAP have been met. As well as being fair, the common agriculture policy must also be greener. Public opinion demands this, and rightly so. Agriculture is an important component of the environment, on which it exerts a strong influence. Similarly, it has been impact on climate change and is first to be impacted by climate change and the natural disasters it brings. Therefore, our agriculture policy cannot be separated from our environmental and climate policies. As I have said before, agriculture is not an industry. The land is not a factory. Animals are not machines, but also farmers are not racing drivers. Agriculture should not be a race to produce as much as possible and as intensively as possible, without regard to the environmental consequences. Here I should like to quote John Paul II, who at a meeting with farmers many years ago said something very important. Make sure you don't give into temptation to increase productivity and profit to detriment of nature. When man forgets this principle, sooner or later nature will rebel against it. We are starting to observe signs of this rebellion in natural disasters and climate events such as drought and floods, as well as in livestock diseases. We have drawn appropriate conclusions in the new CAP. Our emphasis is on sustainable agriculture, on agroecology, on practices that conserve soil, restrict CO2 emissions, and improve water management. Some people fear that the green architecture on the CAP will result in decreased production, posing a threat to food security. Naturally, we will be keeping a close eye on this aspect, but I don't think that green agriculture means less efficient agriculture. Incentives such as financial support for eco-schemes or animal welfare will enable many of farms, in particular small and medium-sized farms, to restart or increase agriculture production in a more sustainable manner. The Commission will provide funding and tools inter alia for carbon farming and precision farming. This can increase agriculture production, while at the same time reducing harmful emissions and making consumption of inputs more rational, translating into greater efficiency overall. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, the common agricultural policy must be more effective. This means a policy based on performance and focused on results. The 387 billion euro we are spending on the CAP under the current financial perspective must yield tangible results for farmers and for society as a whole. We need economic results in the form of a decent income for farmers. We need environmental results in the form of greater benefits for our climate, natural resources, biodiversity, and animal welfare. And we need results for society in the form of a contribution to the sustainable development of rural areas. It is against this criteria that we will assess the strategic plans in the coming months and their implementation in the coming years. Ladies and gentlemen, the new Common Agricultural Policy puts a package of opportunities on the table for our farmers. In their strategic plans, member states will decide which of these opportunities to offer to their farmers. These plans will provide the first comprehensive picture of the Common Agricultural Policy reform. We should focus our attention on these plans. The Commission will assess these plans predominantly with regard to the implementation of our common CAP objectives. On this we will be strict. However, many key decisions will be left to the sovereign discretion of the member states. It will be for member states to decide which farmers shall be entitled to payments and how to redistribute at least 10% of payments to small and medium-sized farms. It will be for member states to decide which eco-schemes to opt for and which programs and interventions will be proposed under the second pillar. For strong decisions to be taken, strong dialogue must take place first. I am not only referring to the crucial dialogue taking place between the Commission and the Member States with regard to their strategic plans. I also refer to the internal discussion within Member States between the national authorities, farmers, and society. This dialogue is of great importance. For my part, I'm urging all parties to get involved in this dialogue, independently of the consultation that have already been concluded. Until the strategic plans have been finally approved, there is always scope for improvement. The shape and success of this plan remain firmly within our hands. The goal of fairer, greener and more effective policy for our farmers and our citizens is firmly within our grasp. Thank you very much.
Merci. Commissioner, thank you so much for articulating what is clearly a fairer approach to farming, which is a concept with a new type of results-driven approach where we're looking at the health of not just our economy, but also the health of our people and the land that we don't want to rebel against us in the future as well. No farmer left behind. I think that's a kind of theme which we'll see recur in different forms during these next 2 days. So Commissioner, once again, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Now, our next speaker today will speak about the future of Europe, which role for farmers and rural areas. I'm delighted to welcome the Vice President of the European Commission for Democracy and Demography, Dubravka Šuica. Welcome.
Thank you, Brian. Good morning to everybody. Dear Commissioner Wojciechowski, dear ladies and gentlemen. Today's event takes place under the heading of a long-term vision. This is precisely the approach we are taking in the European Commission when it comes to our rural areas. I want to take this opportunity to thank you, farmers, local action groups, and stakeholders for what you are doing for rural areas. Stronger, connected, resilient, prosperous. These are 4 pillars underpinning the long-term vision for rural areas adopted by the European Commission on the 30th of June this year. The long-term vision is developed not only for rural areas, but crucially with rural areas. Thanks to your inputs and collaboration, we have the capacity for a vision for the future that will allow the potential of every village and rural area and region to emerge. This participatory approach continues as we implement the actions set out in the vision. Once again, we need you to make the vision a reality on the ground now that we are in the implementation phase. With the vision, we are trying to create additional opportunities in our rural areas that complement the work of farmers. The vision allows farmers to connect to all other stakeholders and service providers. Additional opportunities include new possibilities for startups, rural entrepreneurship, connectivity, and health and services with special potential coming from twin digital and green transitions. In today's world, digital connectivity is vital and infrastructure as water supply. Therefore, through the vision, we have created a project called Rural Digital Future, which is all about boosting sustainable digital transformation of rural areas. In the European Union, and indeed globally, we need a robust policy approach to close the gaps for rural areas and to harness their potential. We need to connect our rural areas with their surrounding areas and cities in a sustainable way. This will help facilitate business creation. Let us remember that the world itself is a village. Although the vision focuses on EU territories, our rural areas share challenges and opportunities with many other rural areas across the globe. With this vision, there is enormous potential for an exchange and sharing of best practices across our global village for our global village. The medium-term outlook report published today confirms the analysis done for the vision, which shows that the agriculture area of the European Union is projected to reduce slightly in the next decade. Agricultural labor will continue to decrease due to structural changes, but at a slower pace than in previous years. Farmers are very important for the future rural areas and for society as a whole. The action plan of the vision contains also tangible initiatives to strengthen rural innovation ecosystems and social innovation. These tools are necessary to develop new business models, markets, and value chains. Additional initiatives help sustain the digital transformation of rural areas, investment in better infrastructure, and improved skills. We look at supporting increasing environmental and social resilience, investing in carbon farming, healthy soils, and a key role for women. Finally, we also support social economy and entrepreneurship that can provide a source of diversification and extra added value. Complementary to the Outlook efforts which we are showing here today, the European Commission is setting up a rural observatory to further improve data collection and analysis on rural areas. It will help us to understand better how rural areas are evolving. This will inform and improve our policy making. A robust policy approach is needed to close the gaps that rural areas have over cities and to harness its potential. All relevant European Union policies must cooperate more closely and improve their territorial coordination. The long-term vision for rural areas can also inspire and support national governments, regions, and the rural communities in seizing opportunities available under the various European Union policies and tools. The success of the vision will largely depend on engaging the stakeholders. National and regional planning and financing can focus their actions on the goals of the vision. A Rural Pact will be launched next year as a framework for continuous engagement and cooperation of a wide range of actors at the European Union, national, regional, and local level, with the aim of making rural areas attractive places to live and work. All actors will be called upon to exchange ideas, to exchange experiences and best practices to help achieve the shared goals of the vision, using all the policies at their disposal. It is vital that farmers and rural actors bring in the agriculture component of to the Rural Pact. In addition, next year we will provide a toolkit for beneficiaries to support them as they navigate the opportunities that the various post-2020 EU funds are offering. When it comes to demographic change, which is part of my portfolio, we need to manage depopulation in a smart way, preserve the present population, and make rural areas attractive to young farmers, to professionals, and also to newcomers. The action plan of the vision contains initiatives to sustain remote working and services, business creation, and innovation. This, in turn, increases the attractiveness of rural areas. But given the demographic trend of aging, we must also remember that rural older generations, we also have to take them into consideration. Indeed, aging can be the spark for creating new developments. We must grasp the economic opportunities and innovative character of the silver economy. I'm thinking here about innovative technologies, products and services, including in the health sector, that the silver economy is capable of generating. The silver economy is expected to grow to 5.7 trillion euros in 2025. If ranked among sovereign nations, the European silver economy would be the third largest economy in the world, behind only the USA and China. And it will continue to grow. Our rural areas can seize this opportunity. Dear ladies and gentlemen, as we look to the future, we must leave no one behind, as already said. We have ensured that the long-term vision for rural areas and all the accompanying events are an integral part of the Conference on the Future of Europe process. The Conference on the Future of Europe is a timely opportunity to empower citizens and facilitate their participation in the policy-making process at all levels. The conference needs to go beyond capital cities. On the online digital platform of the conference, you can see that many citizens' proposals directly address agriculture. There are ideas on promoting local farming and fair prices for farmers. Another recurrent theme has to do with agriculture and health, especially when it comes to the use of pesticides and antibiotics. The voices of the rural areas must be heard in this innovative process. The spirit of innovation is alive and kicking in our rural areas. This event, presenting the agriculture outlook, is further proof of this. Innovative solutions and best practices from administrations, stakeholders, farmers, and rural people everywhere can enrich and broaden our vision and transform our rural areas. I look forward to our continued cooperation. Thank you very much.
Merci. Commissioner, thank you for such a positive perspective on the future of farming and the agriculture and how Europe intends to deal with this in the context of the future of Europe discussion as well. But what we heard clearly is about a vision which is focused on stronger, connected, digital and innovative communities, rural communities, which are attractive places to live and to work. So thank you once again for that. Now let's move on to our next session.